but that he was traumatized by being at CCOT and fearful of many of the prisoners in other cell blocks who called out to him and taunted him in various ways.
Abrego Garcia asked to make a phone call so he could speak to his wife, Jennifer, and his family, but he was told no. Here's Senator Van Hollen telling us that. Let's play it.
At that time, he told me that he was taken to Baltimore first. I assume that was the Baltimore Detention Center. He asked to make a phone call from there to let people know what had happened to him. But he was denied that opportunity. He said he was later taken with some others from Baltimore to a detention center in Texas. And some point thereafter, I don't know whether it was a period of hours or days, he was handcuffed, shackled, and put on a plane along with some others where they couldn't see out of the windows. There was no way to see where they were going in the plane.
Senator Van Hollen then talks about how he told Abrego about the message from his wife. Play the clip.
When I told him that his wife and family sent their love and were fighting for Kilmar's return home every day, he said that he was worried about all of you. That was his response. How are you dealing with this horrible ordeal and nightmare for the family? He said that thinking of you, members of his family, is what gave him the strength to persevere, to keep going day to day, even under these awful circumstances. He spoke several times about your 5-year-old son who has autism. 5-year-old son who was in the car in Maryland when Kilmar was pulled over by U.S. government agents and handcuffed.
More from Senator Van Hollen here.
My principal mission was to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I told his wife, Jennifer, and his family that I would do everything in my power to make that happen. And last night at about 6:40 p.m. El Salvador time, 8:45 p.m. here on the East Coast, I called Jennifer to tell her that I had met with Kilmar. And I told her what he said to me, which was first and foremost that he missed her and his family. And as he said that, you could see a tear go down his cheek.
Senator Van Hollen makes it clear that, yes, this is about Abrego, but this is more than Abrego. This is about due process. And if the government is going to do this to Abrego, other migrants, and then Donald Trump says, I'm coming for the, quote, homegrowns, Donald Trump will do this to his political opponents. That's the Trump regime's plan. Let's play it.
And it's also important that people understand this case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States of America. If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights and due process for everyone else in America.
Yes. Thank you.
The fourth.
Senator Van Hollen just again talks about what this situation's about. He talks about how an administrative error by the DOJ led to an individual being kidnapped, sent to an extermination camp, being abducted from the streets of Maryland, and now the Trump regime refuses to return Abrego. Play this clip.
An administrative error that has resulted in him being abducted off the streets of Maryland and put into prison in El Salvador, that has deprived him of his personal freedom and liberty. But rather than fix this grievous error that they agreed had been made in court, what did the Trump administration do? They upbraided and fired fired the lawyer who told the truth to the court.
That's right.
That's what they did. They didn't fix the error. They fired the lawyer who told the truth.
Notice what he said at the end there that doesn't get enough attention. The DOJ lawyer who admitted to the court, fulfilling his duty of candor to the court, that it was a mistake to send ABREGO to the detention center in El Salvador, to the extermination camp. The Trump regime fired that DOJ official right there. Then you have Democratic Senator Van Hollen say, look, put up or shut up with your evidence. Look, the bottom line is whether you're a good guy, a bad guy, whatever, in the United States, there's due process. You prove your case, you put up or shut up, you put up your evidence, and then there are consequences. But we live in a law and order evidence-based system. Play this clip.
Where the case first appeared. This is a quote from her opinion. Defendants, and in this case, this is the Trump administration she's referring to, have offered no evidence linking ABREGO Garcia to MS-13 or any terrorist activity. And vague allegations of gang association alone do not supersede the express protections offered under the INA, unquote. She emphasized this point, and I'm quoting, no evidence before the court connects ABREGO Garcia to MS-13 or any other criminal organization, unquote. In other words, put up in court or shut up.
Senator Van Hollen talks about his meeting with the vice president of El Salvador, where he was asking the vice president of El Salvador, were crimes committed? Why are you holding him here? To which the vice president of El Salvador said, the reason is because Trump is paying us to keep him here. Play it.
Senator, what did ABREGO Garcia say that the officials in El Salvador told him about why he was sent to that prison and how long he would be there?
They haven't told him anything about why he was sent.
Or how long he would be there?
They didn't tell him anything about that. In fact, I asked the vice president exactly that question. You know, why is he here? Is he violating any laws in El Salvador? Do you have any proof that he's committed a crime? No. Why is he here? Because the Trump administration is paying us.
Did he say what he heard from other migrants?
Here's more from Senator Van Hollen about the staging of the scene in El Salvador that the El Salvador authoritarian leader Nayib Bukele created to try to mock ABREGO Garcia and Democratic Senator Van Hollen by making it seem like they were drinking margaritas when they were not. Play this clip.
About what I would call Margarita Gate. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but President Bukele, you know, after I met with Kilmar, did this tweet showing us at a table with these two glasses. So here's what happened. When I first sat down with Kilmar, we just had glasses of water on the table. I think maybe some coffee. And as we were talking, one of the government people came over and deposited two other glasses on the table with ice, and I don't know if it was salt or sugar around the top, but they look like margaritas. And if you look at the one they put in front of Kilmar, it actually had a little less liquid than the one in front of me, to try to make it look, I assume, like he drank out of it. Let me just be very clear. Neither of us touched the drinks that were in front of us. And if you want to play a little Sherlock Holmes, I'll tell you how you can know that. So if you look at the video or the picture I sent out from the beginning of our meeting, you'll see there are no glasses on the table. So you'll see in later videos, they are on the table. But they made a little mistake. For some people are very careful, right? If you sip out of one of those glasses, some of whatever it was, salt or sugar, would disappear. You would see a gap. There's no gap. Nobody drank any margaritas or sugar water or whatever it is. But this is a lesson into the lengths that President Bukele will do to deceive people about what's going on. And it's also shows the lengths that the Trump administration and the president will go to, because when he was asked about a reporter about this, he just went along for the ride.